Morning, take two.
Take two.
Take two.
For real this time.
Welcome, Youngstown Talk Channel. Welcome, everybody. If you want to call the program, 330-595-1600. I'm especially annoyed, both before and even more now.
No.
So we started off and we were talking about something. I don't even want to start off with that now. I don't.
But it's like the biggest.
I don't care.
Do you want to come back to it
Yes.
later?
Yes. When I'm less annoyed.
Yeah, Joe's annoyed because we started talking about something and then realized that you all couldn't see us. We had to start over.
I'm annoyed.
So we'll come back to it, I guess.
Okay. All right. I pissed off the Bernie bros today, and then that's a really good starting of every morning.
Bernie Sanders?
Bernie Sanders, yeah. If you've noticed, like, he and AOC have been putting this big drive on to get support, and they're doing quite well. They're drawing and attracting pretty big crowds to this. And it's astonishing, right, how many brain dead people are willing to compromise a system that, while it might not be perfect, the experiment of math that is just so brain dead, it's crazy. I mean, literally what this socialism thing is can't work, never has worked, and requires total tyrannical control to even have a chance of working. And we want to do that with all of the evidence that socialism has failed everywhere it's been, but we want 50% of the people that are willing to do that because they're not smart enough to see the destruction, but they want the handout that comes along with free stuff. It's just disappointing.
So it's not this idea like when the people cry that, oh, one person's trying to be this dictator and a king and all powerful and we shouldn't let it unless we get a handout with it.
If we get a handout, then you can completely control everybody and tell everybody what they're going to do and force everybody to do what they want to do. That's the downside of socialism.
Yeah.
You get cheese, you'll take the trap. And it's not like even I can't debate into this because how do you get someone to especially if you don't like the capitalist system anyway, right? You are a big socialist supporter. Like, how do I talk you out of that?
So what exactly are those two doing right now? I haven't seen
AOC.
much about, yeah.
So those two, Bernie has been really mishandled by everyone. All right, he had a true shot to be a nominee for the Democrats, but the problem is that the establishment really cannot stomach someone who is so radical in how open they want socialism, but they want it on the DL. You can't. It's not popular with all people because there's just so much evidence that it's a terrible idea. So he gets shafted by his own party, and so they're putting together this really early campaign to show the Democrats how much support, because if you haven't noticed, the Democrats are not doing well through the establishment side. So he's their best option as far as a popularity and support goes. So they're doing a really good job.
Wasn't he originally third party? Wasn't he kind of?
Did he go independent for a little while? Maybe he's one of those.
Like when I first learned about him, I think he was. I remember liking him at first. I was like, "Oh, feel the burn," like everybody was doing.
Yeah.
And then as more time went on and more information came around, I was like, I'm not so sure. But I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but I feel like he was sort of almost like how RFK Jr. was sort of on his own and then joined a side. I feel like Bernie.
Yeah, well, he's been shafted so many times by the Democrats. I wouldn't be surprised if he needed to go to a different party to even get looked at, because in every primary he gets killed.
Yeah.
His party won't support him. I mean, he's just that radical. But anyway, I shared a quote from him. He was on with Brett Baer, and Brett Baer pointed out that he was doing all of these climate crisis talks, and he takes a private jet, right? So I'm not a big fan of that little catch, right? So what?
Yeah, people did that with Taylor Swift too.
Yeah. But he was a little bit dismissive, and what he said was, what, do you expect me to go to a Delta terminal and just wait amongst 30,000 people for a flight? So, which made it an elitist comment, not necessarily just a conflict with what he said. They're both in there.
Yeah.
But it was terrible optics.
Well, could you see someone that is a well-known politician sitting at a
No, it
normal
makes no
terminal?
sense.
Yeah.
No, it may
I mean, they
that
would
part,
be harassed.
that
and
part of it makes absolutely no sense.
there would be mayhem.
John Kerry when he takes private jets, but John Kerry's funny because he knows that is really bad looking when he lectures people on the use of fossil fuels, and yet he's so special that he breaks every rule that he would force on someone else if given the opportunity. So that conflict is fun to talk about, and he tries to deny. He says it's not his private plane, it's his wife's or his family's. And so it's funny because at least Bernie accepts it, because if I were him, I would say, look, I go to a lot of places and I need security details, and it makes no logical sense to, go on commercial flights when I need those protections. Yes, I probably consume more than the average flyer. But if you look at the net aggregate, am I doing better for the environment by advocating for certain things? Yes. So if you take the math all down, it's a net positive in what I'm doing. And that would be the good explanation. Someone like me would say, okay, that's reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you play that game, then I will take advantage of it. And I love throwing those things back at you and watching you say, oh, that one's not fair. So it's not really me. It's just me being a troll.
A troll.
Yeah. So, and I would say some of the benefits, okay, if you want to engage me in sort of like why socialism is the way, do you believe we should go anything socialist?
Not really.
Okay.
No. I was like,
all right, so let's define socialism.
Yeah. I'm going to let you do that.
Okay. So the means of production, so the stuff that you do and what you do, is owned by the state. You are not, what you do and what you have is not yours. Okay. So that is socialism. And fire departments, police, roads, that's not socialism. Those are things where we put the collective money in the pot and somebody else spends it on our behalf, but we still own that means of production. It definitionally, that's not socialism. So I wanted to pre-make that argument.
Would you at all compare socialism to like the idea of like the community tip jar, that here's a tip jar, all the money gets divided up among the whole staff?
No,
but maybe sometimes the staff's not even there. No,
so socialism would be you go to work, right? And the paycheck gets sent to somebody else, and then they decide what comes back to you. They own the means of production, so it goes to them first, and then they decide. They might give it all back. But the definition is that you don't own it and you have no right to whatever it is you do. So when we were traveling down in Mexico, we were talking to one of our tour guides, and he was working a couple of jobs, couple tourism jobs, but the government would give him livestock. Okay. He didn't own the livestock, but he had to work the livestock, and they would take the product of the livestock. They'd allow him to take milk and eggs and things that they needed from them. But everything that he touched and owned and worked for, the government took first crack at before he got anything. So that's in practice. Like, would you do it? Would you say the government, semi-trailer comes in and they give you what you're going to do for a living, and you just kind of have to do it, whether or not it's good or bad, right? You want some choice and some freedoms in the decision.
Because part of me was like, well, this sounds like what employees are doing. But you're saying, like, let's say you own the business and you still are at the mercy of what they're going to allow you to do and have. Or you
say that first part again. How is that like?
So instead of like a restaurant where the employees get a paycheck for their work, let's say you're the restaurant owner and you manage it, and you are still being told what you will make and what you will get. Or no? Okay.
That would mean that it becomes payday and your paycheck gets sent to somebody else, meaning that you're looking at the clock that you punched, and that you would have a relationship with it now because the hours that you work equals money that you're given. Well, this means hours that you work and they get your money, but then they decide what comes back to you. So the decisions are made outside of you.
So it's like, here's your allowance, regardless of what
you do. If they give you good stuff, you'll tolerate it. They're making good decisions. They're taking care of you. But mathematically, socialism never works because the level of control has to be elevated. So if I was like, everybody in this building, we're going to give a free car to. right? So the first thing is everybody in this building is like, free car? That's amazing. And then the bean counters have to go in the back room and they have to figure out how to actually make that happen. The cars are going to cost money and that's going to have to come from somewhere. We're going to have to distribute it. So then they start making formulations, right, to make sure everybody in this building gets a car. Now, the problem is the math never works out on if everybody could have a free car, they would already have one. So how are we going to inauthentically give everybody a car? We got to change some things and we got to take the car from someone else in order to give it to you without paying, right?
Yeah.
And so, the biggest argument is in medicine and healthcare. Okay, free healthcare to everyone. And then the bean counters go in the back room. Okay, how do we do that? Well, the people that are providing the service are getting paid right now. And if we're going to give it to you, we have to take the money to give it to you from someone else, or we got to force the people who provide the service to do it for free. So I have to have state doctors who they don't make any money, right? Yeah. They're not paid for the services that are being rendered. They're being compensated by the people who control them and tell them what it is they're going to do and not do.
Yeah, because a big concern too is what does this do to the value of things?
That's what I'm saying. Like on a spreadsheet, this socialism does not work. Does not. Ever, ever, ever. There's a couple countries that get away with socialism to a point, but they're communists. They control people. They can kill you. They can imprison you. They can force you to labor. They can do all of these things. So if you're willing to take all of your freedoms and say our government's so competent and they're so noble that they'll make decisions and it'll always benefit me. No, they have to trick you into giving you something that you want in trade for all of your liberties. And it's always a bad trade. Nobody is going to do it well.
So it's no longer run by the people. You are very much run and owned by the
state.
Government.
Yep. They control you because you've outsourced your needs to somebody, knowing and hoping that they'll do it better than you can do it for yourself.
And guess what? If that head organization, the government, becomes corrupt or shady or starts doing wrongdoings, what are you going to do?
Yeah. So that would be my first test. The people that you're giving the thing to, are they really good at doing stuff? Are they really good at being pure and not being corrupt and spending money wisely and picking good services and not overpaying for things? If they're all of that, then we begin the conversation. If they're none of those things, then you have no business outsourcing to the people who will just one intention, right? Yeah. They know they're not good at that stuff either.
Like if they told you, hey, by the way, we have this separate fund for ourselves. It's basically hush money for when we want to be a little immoral and do a little wrongdoing. We can pay off people to be quiet and don't talk about it so we can get away with it. And I'm going to take money that you could be making and put it into that fund for me.
They wouldn't do anything like that. So anyway, so I'm going to, sort of make it an effort to diminish and demean both Bernie Sanders and AOC as many times as I can, because where they're at, they're contained. They scream a lot. They say a lot of words. They get people, frenzied up. They're fun to watch, right?
Yeah.
But I do not want them in a position where they could actually do stuff. Like we need to keep them as far away from the levers of government as we possibly can, because they are dangerous. If you think Trump is dangerous because he's erratic and whatever, thankfully there's a lot of buffers and a lot of, fuses between his erratic behavior and doing things that compromise, how the system works.
Yeah.
So
do you see them as being dangerous because of impure intentions or dangerous because of incompetence?
Oh, it's a little bit of both. I think they're dumb as rocks. I really do. Anybody who is bad at math is dumb as a box of rocks, as far as I'm concerned. And
ouch.
But they're not only bad at math, they're only good in their silo. Like you take them out of that silo and you wouldn't entrust them to be in charge of anything that's important. Heavy machinery, CEO of a business, wherever somebody has never been put under control of an operation that matters, right? You can't trust the biggest machine that ever existed in our federal government as being in control of that. Where you can argue Donald Trump has had some successes in his life, and he's used to working in operations that have lots of people and lots of function, right? And he's been okay at delegating out controls to other people and does a good job. And the detractors of him would say he's had failed businesses and, you know, filed bankruptcy a bunch of times. And some of the products that he's put out there, like his steaks and his university and his meme coin are a little iffy. And that's due criticism. I don't mind it. So
yeah.
But yeah, we got to
Trump
we got to keep those guys. They're fun to watch, but we got to keep them from being an actual contender as much as we can. So I will throw shade their way. I will do things I normally wouldn't do with any because they are dangerous.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to push back and you think that they are good people to have in a leadership position, by all means, let us know and we'll dive into that. Speaking of,
yes,
it's not speaking of anything actually, but you made me.
It was a good segue.
Yeah, you made me think of a total different subject. If you were done with that.
Oh, I'm done.
Okay, unless someone wants to push back, by all means. I know we talked about the other day this instance at the playground. The woman that, you know, called a little boy a really awful name. Have you been seeing more information about that?
Oh yeah.
Have you heard about the man who was recording the video?
Yep.
So anyone who does not know, apparently the man recording the video was an immigrant from Somalia who is accused of child assault, because we can't say certain things on the internet anymore, assaulting in a horrific manner an underage person. And the blonde woman is who we hate, right? that was the wrongdoing. And it's so interesting that I saw someone talking about this recently, and they were saying what this is not a race issue. What this is a response to the whole, I can't remember their names, the high school kids at the track where one kid stabbed to death another kid. There was still outrage over that. Everyone's like, oh, we are so far gone that this white woman raised money. People are defending this kind of behavior. What does that say about us? Well, you know, they did that for the boy who killed someone too, right? That there was a GoFundMe for the murderer of this kid who killed another student. There's people raising money for Luigi, who killed the CEO of that health insurance company. And so it's not like, oh, we're just evil people that are raising money for a woman who used a bad word. Like, this is happening too, but where's the outrage? Where's the outrage that we're talking about what this woman said more than we are talking about that the person who recorded her should also not be at a playground and has committed an actual crime. But nope, we're just going to ignore that fact. What do you say about any of those things?
It's comical to me because I picture the hierarchy of what society should feel about certain things, and low rung would be what the blonde woman said. That's low rung. It's a vulgarity. It was bad behavior. It was insensitive. It really doesn't play well.
Yeah.
And then you have a pedophile that is snooping around at a playground. And I would say that's a little bit above the vulgarity and how much traction it gets and what we want to talk about and what we're attracted to. So me, like, I'm a little bit more upset about the pedophile.
Yeah. And somebody had mentioned too, they're like, we have sort of this hypersensitivity to race now. And it's like, where did that begin though? You know, shining a spotlight on race mattered to people when it was a certain race that was unfair. Okay, but you've now shown a spotlight on this issue. So if we're going to be hypersensitive to one, then why can't we talk about the other and unfairness when it comes to the other? And it was this interesting podcast where it was like, this is so much more than just let's hate a woman that said a bad word. But the fact that has been the issue over all these other underlying issues is like, oh, that's right, because it's what pushes our agenda. It is never about what's right and wrong, what's fair, what's not. It's what pushes the agenda I want to push today. Whose side am I on and what am I willing to overlook?
All right, I want to play you a clip. Okay.
Okay.
And I don't know if did you see Pierce Morgan?
Recently?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So this will be a good part of our topic here. And sorry, phone line people, I'm going to take you offline to play this clip.
You'll have to type it out today.
All right.
Here's Morgan. Sometimes I'll watch him, but people get so like arguing and yelling over each other. It's hard to even watch sometimes.
Okay. It's a 50.
The way things are going, you're going to make a millionaire out of a woman who racially abused a child. Did you call?
And I'm going to cue this up.
Yeah. So is it one of those where multiple people like chime in and give their
Well,
opinions?
there was the
Looks like it might be.
Systematic racism. As much as Black people and people of color want to talk about systematic racism in the United States, it's quite the opposite. They get preferential treatment when it comes to getting a job, when it comes to getting into colleges. White people, on the other hand, have been getting attacked relentlessly. Look at 2016 and BLM and all the riots. We just had to sit back and watch people burn down our cities and do nothing about it. So the way to fight back against essentially this anti-white hatred that's been systemically, ingrained in U.S. society is with white unity. We don't see white unity on.
Hang on. Okay, hang on. Sorry, just to be clear, this has got nothing to do with anything you just said. This is a disgusting racist woman who repeatedly spews the N-word, first at a young child, and then at the person taking the video of her, does it with complete impunity, does it numerous times. We're talking about a bona fide, unquestionable racist. So I don't understand why what you've just said to me bears any relation to white unity or anything you've just said. She's just a racist, isn't she? You wouldn't dispute that.
It's not about her. It's not about her. It's about coming together and supporting another white person. And it doesn't matter.
Why would you want to support a white racist?
Because I want to support free speech, and you cannot have free speech in a country.
Yeah, that's fine. You can support free speech, but you also have to be accountable for what you say. Would you use the N-word out of interest?
Yes.
You would?
I do, quite frankly.
You use the N-word quite frequently. Well, why? Other than the fact you're a despicable racist. Are you?
Some would say I am. I guess according to the ADL, I'm a white supremacist. I'm a neo-Nazi.
Well, if you use the N-word repeatedly, you are a racist, then, are you?
Sure, I'll embrace that. If that means forwarding, helping white people achieve freedom of speech, real freedom of speech, which, by the way, Shiloh Hendricks is being attacked on all fronts. They're trying to bring legal charges against her. They're trying to get her children taken away. So you were saying Carmelo Anthony, it doesn't matter. That's a different
but just to be clear, you just said to me you use the N-word regularly. In what context? Do you use it with Black people?
Yes, if it's appropriate.
When would it be appropriate to use the N-word? People. When would it be appropriate?
Anytime I feel like it.
So you're an unashamed racist.
Correct.
Well, do you understand that makes you a despicable human being?
I guess so. I don't really care. Why are we not talking about Shiloh Hendricks? Why are we talking about?
Well, I think you've moved it on in this debate very quickly to your own racism, which explains why you've supported her in public and why you've got all these views. You see no problem with a woman shrieking the N-word repeatedly because you yourself are a despicable racist, and you've just proudly admitted that with a smug grin on your face, which is pretty horrifying, actually, for most people to have to watch. And shame on you. You're entitled to do it, and I'm entitled to call you despicable.
Well, shame on white people for allowing themselves to be systematically discriminated against in the United States. This is our country. This is a country that should be
in your country.
Because I'm white and my...
Well, there are no Black people in American history. Is that what you're saying? That they've all just landed in America, invading your white country. Is that your position?
Mm-hmm. Well, they were brought here technically.
My God, do you understand how dumb you sound?
This is stupid. This is stupid and racist. And at some point, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to reward this kind of disgusting behavior by platforming it?
Thoughts?
I did not know she was going to go that direction with it. I thought she was going to maybe say, no, I am not, but here's why people think I am, and blah, blah, blah. But for her to be like, yep, I guess I am.
At a certain point, right?
Yeah.
And that if no matter what you do, you're a racist, you finally sign and say, fine, I'm a racist.
Yeah.
I don't do racist things, but I guess I'm a freaking racist.
Yeah, because I think the point she started to make, where I was kind of following, like, okay, I get what she's getting at, is the idea of, I saw a video online, somebody's like, this woman should be locked up and have her kids taken away. And people are pushing for that. I'm sorry. Saying something mean is not illegal in this country. It's just not.
Okay.
You don't have to like it. It can be awful. Peers can say you're a terrible person. We can all think that. But to be locked up in prison and your children taken away because somebody doesn't like something you said about someone else, I'm sorry, that's just not a thing here. And the idea of people fighting for that, I feel like, is what started to be her point, is we do have freedom of speech. We do have the right to talk about this issue in a way that is about race, that shows injustices on both sides. And it got so off the rails because all people want to do is talk about the word she used and nothing else. And I think maybe that's when she was like, fine, whatever you say. Yep, I am. Sure.
Well, what I like about this is that people are comfortable saying how they really feel. And so if you make something so impolite that people hide their true feelings, you never really knew that's what was stewing in them.
Yeah.
And so like when people have that freedom, at least, you know, if this lady came up to me, I know that she thinks she's an elite in a certain way. And I know how to compartmentalize people who are like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just good information. Do I think she's a good person because she said that? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I wish, I'm going to change gears and I'll tie it back. I promise. It's going to feel like it's odd. You see Target, they are getting rid of self-checkouts. Right.
Okay.
Are you happy or sad about that? Do you like self-checkouts?
I don't care for self-checkouts.
Okay.
I
love
Sometimes they're
freaking
faster.
checkouts.
Sometimes they are faster. Yes, sometimes. But I also sometimes just get a lot of issues with them and I got to wait for someone to come over and it doesn't realize that I did put the item in the bag already. Stop telling me to put it in the bag. So yeah.
So the reason they're getting rid of it is because it has a high theft rate. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And so rather than deal with the high losses from people just walking out of the store, they just decided to get rid of it. But other grocers and retailers are starting to put AI into their self-checkout, where when you walk up to the thing, it has a camera on you, it can see you, and it's making probabilities. It's looking at your maneuvering, who you are, what you look like, and it's making a determination whether or not you are a high potential for a theft. Okay.
Wow.
And so they might pause a checkout to be able to get someone to walk over to you and make sure that everything that was supposed to be scanned got put in the bag. Thank you, sir. Okay, so they can make a determination on probabilities, and then the AI doesn't really care. It's just using statistics to say, you know, for instance, like if you have a 16-year-old boy, statistically, they're more dangerous to insure because they cause more accidents. So your rates are higher. They're not looking at anything else other than they're profiling you into a subset that says you're a high probability. So if you're in a subset, so if statistics say that 17 to 24-year-olds are a high probability for theft, and when the camera looks at you and you look to be a young person, right, it gives you points against you that you might be someone who would steal. So a 90-year-old guy walking up would probably not even get checked because they're in a low probability bracket. But a young person who behaves a certain way and is saying certain things, you'd be able to categorize them as high probability and you give them more scrutiny. And so your losses would go down if you're able to profile someone into those groups, regardless how you feel about the statistics. If statistics say something, right, then AI can manage those statistics when you're being profiled.
So they could be like, hey, high risk person, someone has to come over and watch you or something.
Yeah, exactly. Now, so you will earn, this would be sort of like a retailer's credit score that if you behave a certain way, extra scrutiny.
Yeah.
If you aren't a certain way, less scrutiny.
So let's say you go up to one of these and maybe you just got back from vacation and you're really tan. Well, you with a dark beard and dark skin especially around maybe September 11th, can come off as some kind of way.
Right?
If they came over to you and were like, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to have to observe what you're doing here. And you know exactly what was going on. Would you feel like that's not fair or what? Because of the way I look? Or would you just be like, I get it. I look a little shady.
Well, it depends. If it's equally observed, if it's across the board, then that's not discrimination because they're holding the standard to everyone that's in that profile. If somebody matches it, but they're special and they don't get the scrutiny, now it's discrimination. So as long as it applied to everyone and I knew that my prices were going to be cheaper and I'd have to behave a certain way in order to get the benefits of using a self-checkout, I would not do the things that get me in peril with the scrutiny. Or if somebody just walked over and looked what I'm doing, like, I'm not stealing, so I don't freaking care.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like if you see those signs posted in like places that sell alcohol. If you look under the age of 30, you will be carded.
Yeah.
Well, 30, you are well past the legal drinking age. So if they card someone, like, don't you think that's still sort of like, I'm doing something based off of how you look?
Well, it depends. If we want to shelve all of our ability to profile people, we do it every single day. It's what human brains were effectively built to do, is to do risk assessments and to find out things are dangerous, find out things that are beneficial. We create stereotypes in order to categorize those different dangers and those different benefits. So as long as we're doing that, at least we can take advantage of it and minimize all of the downside and magnify all of the benefits.
To an extent, though, I would think. I mean, if it's simply go ahead, watch me, I have nothing to hide, fine. What if though you full out get arrested for something and you have to like?
Well, I'm talking scrutiny. Scrutiny. Okay, so
lower.
It's the origin of curiosity, right? So if something like, for instance, if let me think of an example. Can't think of a good example, but if I'm not stealing, then they're not going to arrest me for stealing. They're going to come up, make sure I'm not stealing, come to the conclusion that I'm not stealing, and then they're going to go about their merry way. Yeah. So if we're opposed to scrutiny, right, then yes, that, profiling doesn't work because you can't scrutinize. But obviously we're in a non-trust society where people steal, rape, murder, all of those things. So we don't live in a high trust society. It requires a different level, right? Different type of society in order to be in high trust. Would you leave your doors open? If you live in a high trust neighborhood, you leave your doors unlocked and you know that nobody's going to break in. If you live in a low trust neighborhood, that means that you would never think of leaving your door open because it's going to happen. So if Target comes to the conclusion that they can't do self-checkout because everybody came to the conclusion they could just steal, that is a low trust environment, and you can add scrutiny to a low trust environment. It's just what we do.
Yeah. Jerry says, so what's the difference between that profiling and people from PA getting stopped by police in certain areas of Ohio? It is overall profiling, which can be considered discrimination.
As long as they're profiling everyone.
Everyone. So, but is there a difference between profiling based on like age and based on race and based on any other criteria? Do you feel like some criteria just feels a little more sensitive than others?
Well, it's statistics based. And if you're doing it, if you hate somebody and you're profiling them because of you're singling them out, then that would be discriminatory. So if I had a statistic that said that if you drive a Lamborghini, chances are you're going to speed. And then when I see a Lamborghini, I'm looking at you, right, for speeding. Well, I profiled it because you have a car that goes fast, right? And statistics say that you want to unleash those horses and you drive fast. Well, I didn't look at the Honda Civic that can only go 45 miles an hour after 30 minutes. I'm profiling it based on a statistic, not on a person.
That's kind of like what we were talking about the other day, where would you fault someone if they were walking around an area that is known to have a high crime rate and they see a man, let's say it's a woman, and there's a man coming at them. Maybe there's a dark hoodie on. I get weird. Like, I've gotten nervous before when I see people in the summertime that have sweatshirts on. It makes me nervous. Mm-hmm. And people are like, oh, why? Is it because of the color of their skin? Is it because of blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, because everything feels wrong. Because I'm in an area that I know is a high crime rate. Because I am a female and that is a male and I know they can overpower me. And because it's 85 degrees, why do you have a black sweatshirt on with your hood up?
See, that's what we naturally do.
Yeah.
And you're not,
there could be
you're,
an issue.
you're not making your conclusion. You're drawing a curiosity, and you are looking with more critical. Your senses are focused on seeing, like, I don't know that they are, but you're paying more attention to if they are.
Yeah, and I feel like, at least me personally, one of the things that can almost sort of make someone like this woman who is speaking is instances like that to which you are accused of being racist. When there's so many that you're accused of it and you're like, I'm not. There's a perfectly reasonable explanation as to why I said or acted in a certain way. And when I say woman, I'm not talking about the woman on the playground. I'm talking about the woman in the Piers Morgan clip. And I'm not saying this is her line of thought, but I could understand people coming to that type of attitude after being accused in so many instances where it's not what they were doing. I get it. She might be despicable, but I get it.
Right. And so if everybody in our society is behaving terribly, then it puts more of an emphasis on us to profile and stereotype to keep ourselves safe and out of danger. So that if you are wrong in your profiling, it doesn't matter. As long as you didn't, sort of take someone's liberties and remove it from them, that's where the line is drawn. But making personal choices with how you decide to discriminate based on profiling is there to keep you safe.
Yeah. And I mean, Emma Lobros were on one day, maybe a week ago or so. And if they're listening and they want to chime in, they're welcome to. But they were talking about, I think it was Isaac saw someone in a Poland Facebook group. A woman had taken a picture of a guy that was around her house and said, does anyone know who this is? What is he doing? Yada, yada, yada. And Isaac pushed back with, why are you concerned? Because he doesn't look like you? And to me, I went, whoa, I'm sorry. No, I would 100% agree with the woman. One, is she home alone? And is she nervous? Because again, that man-woman connection, I am clearly vulnerable here. It is my home. I am alone. I am vulnerable. Maybe she's elderly. I don't know. Two, have there been crimes in the area? I've lived in neighborhoods where they were perfectly good neighborhoods, nice, low crime neighborhoods, and something still happened, especially during the day when they think no one's home. So again, I could see someone feeling some kind of way or feeling kind of threatened. Three, you don't know her background. You don't know if she has been a victim of something and now she's just checking. And then he said, well, if you're that concerned, call the police. Well, then you're really going to push back on her. Instead of her saying, I'm automatically calling the police and I'm going to ruin this possibly innocent person's day by being stopped by the police. Instead, I'm just going to ask, hey, does anyone know if this is a legit person in the neighborhood? Does he work for a company? Is there something? I think she made the right move. She went ahead and asked around before just calling the police on him, because if she would, now she's a Karen. Now you're a Karen and a racist. I think that woman did everything she did with the information presented to her, and immediately she was accused of being a bad person because she was nervous. Why? She's not a bad person. She's gathering information. And I would have done the same thing. And I bet Isaac would have done the same thing, And I think that that's what makes these people like this woman in the Piers Morgan clip. And again, maybe not. Maybe she just is a bad person and a racist. I don't know. But I can totally see people getting to that point where they're like, whatever, I must be, because anytime I question something, there's pushback as to why I even question it.
But we have instincts, and when your instincts tell you things, like, I'm not going to shame you out of your instincts. I can educate you, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to say, because you came to the conclusion that someone was acting weird, that you shouldn't critically look at it and see if there's a reason why they're acting weird. I'm not telling you to act on it as in those instincts were truthful, but you're supposed to pay attention to the details on something that comes to your attention. Your brain is talking to you.
Yeah.
So if you're selling a bunch of stuff and there's a dude, hands in pockets, and he's kind of looking around, whatever, he gave you information. Now, is he going to steal from you? No. So you're not going to tackle him. You're not going to call the police on him, but you're going to watch. You're going to give
senses.
You're going to give scrutiny and
Yeah.
gather more information, because what should have spoken to you is that is a higher probability than someone who's not wearing the hoodie, not hands in pockets, not looking around. So that's the distinction between the two.
Yeah. Denise says, agree, Kelin. A lot of people are showing up burying cables and working on utilities, but good to check with neighbors.
Yeah. Why would you want to tell people that if your brain's talking to you, shut it up because you're a racist? That's the dumbest thing.
Yeah.
Hone your brain.
I saw it maybe a summer ago or so. There was a car driving around to all these different houses in this neighborhood. People would get out, knock on the doors, get back in the car, do it again. They looked kind of young. Were they up to no good? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. So what do? I start texting my neighbors. Hey, do you guys see this car over on so-and-so drive? Hey, do you guys know what these people are doing? Why are they going door to door? There could be a logical explanation. So I'm not just going to get them in trouble, but I'm going to start digging. Stuff does happen.
Yeah. Let's do upside downside on it. So let's just say that car's driving your neighborhood, looks a little suspicious, making a lot of little stops, don't know the person that's driving around. Yep. If you stand by your window and pay attention to them while they're there, what's the upside?
If you stand by your window and pay attention.
And watch out. What's the upside?
You might get more information about what they're doing.
Okay. So you're going to find out whether or not they did anything while they were there because you were paying attention.
Yeah.
What's the downside?
I don't know.
It just costs you some time to
Yeah.
watch them. That's the only downside.
That's
Now, if
it.
you don't do that, if you're like, no, I'm not going to watch them, I'm not going to play into the stereotypes of that profile.
Sure, they're fine.
What's the upside?
You won't get called a name.
I'll give you a virtue pin that you can wear on you because you did that.
Hey, you didn't act on fear.
What's the downside?
Something could be wrong. And now you're
So really, when we put this
Yeah.
on a spreadsheet and I gave it numerical figures, what should you do? The thing that gave you the most benefit, which is either you expense some energy scrutinizing and it ended up not happening, right?
Yeah.
Or you could stop a bad thing from happening because you were freaking paying attention.
Yeah. And I've been in a situation before. One time I was pulling into my driveway. This was years ago. And as I'm getting out on my own property in my own home, somebody walks up to me. I didn't see a car anywhere. I don't know who they are. They walk up and they try telling me about a bottle of window cleaner they have. This bottle has no label on it. This person has no company merch on and hands me a laminated card with some BS about a cleaning information. Oh, can I do your car? No, thank you. No, thank you. Luckily, my dog was in the car and I was pretending like my dog, who in real life wouldn't hurt a fly. I was pretending was a little standoffish and vicious just to get this person away. Like, no, I'm sorry. You got to be careful. I got to get my dog out now. No, thank you. Even took the card back because they only had one. So everything about this, there's no label. You're not dressed professionally. I don't see where you came from. You're going door to door. You only have one of these. You're trying to sell it, but you have one laminated one that you show people. No, everything about this is shady. I don't like it. And I left it alone. Sure enough, very next morning, what's in the news? The local news. People are casing houses, going door to door, acting like cleaner salespeople. What they're actually doing is casing your house and casing the neighborhood. So now what do I do? Now I am going to approach every stranger that comes up to me some kind of way, right? Doesn't matter what they're doing. So the moment I now say, hey guys, someone's outside my house. Does anyone know who this is? If someone then says, why? Because they don't look like you. All you did now is anger that person. And now that person is going to be bitter and turn into that blonde girl on Piers Morgan.
Yep. Instinct shaming. That's a new thing.
Yes.
And we need
instinct
people
shaming.
we need our data to be pure, and we're acting based on statistics and math, not picking out people that we dislike and trying to pin bad things on them. And we need people's instincts to talk to them and maneuver their gaze, their focus, not their action. I have to be very clear about that. Acting on suspicions, right?
Yeah.
Means that you focus and you collect more information. But acting like calling the police and tackling the person and shooting them, you cannot act on instincts, but you can use it to gather more information. Carter says, thank you guys for filling the Dan Rivers void. Very interesting and entertaining. And the MLO Bros are Youngstown through and through. And Dennis gave us some 100% things. So this is a cool topic because, like, you know, Kelin and I specialize in unpopular things. So the things that we say are going to rub people the wrong way because we're terribly fearful because of people's misbehavior. But the problem is that when we bless the thing that you're shaming about, we create more misbehavior just in a different department. And I'm uncomfortable with both. So let's put our focus into making the, you know, what human beings do well, which we are good and we can be good and noble and virtuous and look out for people. Sure. Support that. Right. But we also know that there are tons of bad actors in there. And I wouldn't tell my wife to say, hey, when you're walking down the street, you're in that alley, right? I want you to clear all of your stereotypes out of your mind and walk right into harm's way and danger for the sake of doing it. I would never in a million years saying that because I want that person to be safe. I don't give a shit if I hurt your feelings because she thought you, who was a complete innocent person, that she walked around you. Because she doesn't owe you getting close to you.
Bernie Sanders, again, could say, we've got to watch the environment. We have to watch our emissions all day long till he's blue in the face.
That's right.
But is he going to go and sit in a public terminal around thousands of people that are probably gunning for him? Maybe, maybe not. No, because he's not a crazy person.
Exactly. So his danger profile is high, and he acts on the data that he needs to take a private jet.
Yeah. And what's interesting too, and I don't want this to sound like I am defending the blonde playground woman, because no, what she did is inexcusable and bad behavior.
Don't be sensitive to that.
But I wonder what led up to that. It seemed like a pretty extreme reaction to something minor. So what else happened? Why? When we talk about why do I feel the need to check in to somebody who's on my property? Why are my spidey senses tingling? Well, because I've had an instance and I know other people have had instances and I know houses do get broken into. And so why did she go to that level? Number one. Number two is what actually happened before the person started filming? Was this something that she sort of said under her breath? And then it amped because a person now has their phone in her face who's yelling at her. I too would probably get defensive if I just had this annoyance occur. I'm annoyed. Maybe she goes there all the time and this kid's always a problem. I don't know. It's a kid, sure. But I'm just saying, I wonder what led up to this extreme reaction. Maybe she finally got fed up and she muddled something to herself. Well, now a man she doesn't know is in her face, is yelling at her, is shaming her, is recording her. That's when she said it again. That's when she gave the finger. That's when she got irate. So I'm like, I have a hard time believing that this was just an angry, horrific woman that popped off over nothing. I feel like something built up to this moment. Don't you think?
Oh, we're a tinderbox. And that's why I keep making the warning that if we're on this path and we don't have those conversations and we keep on this path, it's just a matter of another BLM riot, just in different direction.
Yep. Well, I mean, how many times, I know I'm not the only one that has gotten to the point that I was so angry. I spewed something I wish I would have never said. I didn't mean that. I was trying to hurt someone. I was trying to hurt you. I said the meanest thing I could think because I was enraged. And I don't mean that, and I shouldn't have said it, and I immediately regret it. But the anger built so much, I spewed something I shouldn't have said in the attempt to hurt you. I feel like this very much could have been the case. It doesn't mean she's racist. It doesn't mean she hates Black people. She said something despicable because she was so angry. But unfortunately, we make it more about race to shame other people to keep a race war going.
Well, she added to her probability that she is a racist. So if I walked in your store and I'm talking to my bud, you're the manager of the store, and I'm talking to my buds and I'm like, hey, you know what? I hate rich people. I think we should take all their money. This store has so much money. I should just take all of this stuff. Like, adding to the probability that I'm going to steal from your store by saying things that propel, that idea.
Yeah.
And so I would watch you more because you said stuff, but you're not a thief until you actually take the item, right? High potential, but not a thief until you steal something. So these people, I don't know that they're racist or not. They said some things that lead me that they have a high potential of maybe being racist. She outright, I don't know if she was being dismissive or condescending back at her and just saying the thing.
Being facetious
could have been theater, could have been performing to what's there, could have been I just don't care, dismissive, call me what you want.
Because she started off saying kind of like what I'm saying is it's very difficult to actually fight racism when we call racism in every situation. And she was saying, again, this woman is being threatened with child protective services. People want her locked in jail. When I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how despicable the thing was that she said. Saying it is not illegal, is not a crime, will not get you thrown in prison. That's our country. And when she started to explain that, he jumped all over and interrupted about what a racist the woman on the playground is. And to me, this almost sounded like, it doesn't matter what you say. Someone's going to see her as a racist. And until you say you're right, she's a racist, it's inexcusable, lock her up. Well, then you must be one too. I can totally see her being like, fine, I guess I am. I guess I am because I agree with freedom of speech, because I agree that now we're talking about race and that's a very important conversation to have. But unless you're having it using the same narrative that the person wants you to, well, now you're just in
so
the
if
same
I'm
boat.
Pierce, and this where I started really getting curious is when she said white people built this country and there's got to be white unity. He was hung up on the you're a racist part because he just said the same thing. I would have delved into it and say, what do you mean about that? Do you mean that does that mean that blacks can't call this place home, that you should kick all the blacks out, and really dig to see if she was saying whether or not this is a counter to, because if a black person said unify black people and we contribute to the society, would have been exactly what she said, just on the other side, and everybody been like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's be proud of who you are.
Yeah.
So that's where I would have dug into to see if she hated people who were not like her, or she was just doing an analog, a 1-for-1 for what a black panelist would have said given the same question.
Yeah, I mean, why didn't Pierce could have easily said, well, do you feel that Caucasians are a superior race, that we are better than African Americans?
Exactly. Dig to it to see if she was a racist rather than
if she
calling
says,
her racist.
If she says one race is superior, we are better than, this should be our country, they're lucky to be here, I would have said, okay, you are clearly a racist. But if she said this woman who used a racial slur has freedom of speech, period, that's not racist. Like, you're not racist for saying that. You're racist for having racist ideals and values. Julie says, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Maya Angelou, that woman on Piers Morgan told you.
All right, caller, you're there.
I was calling in to talk about the woman it was Minnesota, right? That was filmed on a playground.
Yep.
Was that film ever released to the press? Because I haven't been following.
You're talking about the full cell phone footage?
Yeah, was that actually released?
It is online. You can see the snippet to where the man recording her goes up to her and says, did you just call this kid A? And he says it. And then she says, what? And she tries to walk away. And he says, you just called this kid A. And then she says, you're right. I did. If you're going to act like one, well, then I'll say it. And he's like, say it again then. Say it again then. So she finally repeated it and flipped off the guy filming her and was walking away.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course, he's trying to stir discord and make this whole thing viral. I lived in Minnesota for 17 years, and I noticed that she raised like a lot of the money very quickly for her case. And it's because people are fed up with the crime there, just in general. And of course, that really was bad under George Floyd time. And it's only descended into more and more and more chaos, with not even enough cops on the street that you're supposed to have so many police officers per population. They also have the Minnesota Freedom Fund there, which they raise money for bail. So if you're poor and you commit a crime, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be murder, armed carjacking, rape. They will bail you right out. You will not spend one night in jail. So I would say the reaction and the people raising money for her is people in general fed up with the crime. And now it sounds like you said they're going to try and take her children from her. She better get out of Minnesota like yesterday, because if it can happen anywhere, it can happen there. It's completely lawless.
Yeah, I even
So
one person commented and said they need to take her child away because he could be a future Nazi. And I went,
absolutely, she better get out of Minnesota. Seriously. And I think that's why people responded. They're fed up with the crime in general and the chaos that Tim Walz has created in that state. It's so very bad there. It's spread out into the suburbs. It's something you can't imagine. You know, some of these metro areas like Chicago, Philly, Minneapolis, you honestly can't imagine it. So she better just get out of there and never go back, because they will make her life hell.
yeah,
Over saying the word, which is, of course, terrible, especially to a child. But at the same time, it doesn't warrant wrecking her whole life, which is what they will do to her if she doesn't get out of there.
yeah, yeah.
So,
All right.
yeah.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think, I mean, again, this sort of also makes the case then that this was bubbling and about to boil over in this situation. I even saw somebody was commenting on the video and said the man filming said that's only a 5-year-old. It's just a 5-year-old. How could you do that? And in the video, the child's face was blurred online. But somebody else commenting on the video was like, this child looked older than 5. This child looked old enough to know better. Does that matter? Maybe not. I still wouldn't call someone that word. But again, it does sort of speak to the level of frustration or how annoyed this mother was getting. Is it somebody that knows better? Is it somebody she told to stop repeatedly? There's so many things that could have led to that moment. But this was an opportunity to start an argument over race, to push an agenda.
Well, and I think that argument needs to be had. And what I like about this is we get to really objectively look at how we behave. And so if there are people out there that are bubbling up, so polite that they don't share their racist tendencies, drawing that out and digging into it. I mean, the race shame thing is obviously not working. All it's doing is suppressing it and letting that. So is stereotyping and profiling and racist behavior, is it uniform across all races? Are there skin colors and ethnicities that just hate each other by default? Sure. So socially, we should have ways of fostering so that doesn't happen. But what we're doing, all it does is push it down until it pops off. So you don't heal that and fix that if you don't scientifically approach it. And that's why Pierce missed an opportunity to draw out real feelings. If she already felt like, I don't care anymore, I'm just going to say what's on my heart, we can figure out, really what the ingredients of why are you that way? Like, what caused you to feel that way? And start having a real conversation instead of like, oh no, you're just a racist, and we don't want to have any. We don't want you just should go off on an island somewhere by yourself, kind of thing.
Yeah. Lynn says, "Come on, who calls a small child that?"
I know we are.
That's the thing is, nobody is saying what she did is okay.
No.
Nobody is saying that she should not have taken the high road and just left. She should have been the grown up and not acting like a child. What she did and what she said is not okay, and that is indisputable.
Yep.
Our point is, if anybody says anything other than she's a horrific racist, they are also considered in the same boat as her. If somebody says, look, it's not okay, but it's not illegal, she shouldn't go to jail, she shouldn't have her kid taken away, she didn't break any laws, you're a terrible person, you're defending her. No, I'm not. I'm not defending her. What I'm doing is saying, don't make this discussion so that when there is blatant racism, nobody wants to hear it. Nobody cares anymore. Racism can run rampant and we can't stop it because we've highlighted situations that weren't that. You know what I mean? And it's almost like, if we got to push back against racism, which we should, let's make sure we are in those situations, or else we're just shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah. And have you ever been around kids who were using vulgarities around young children? And do you feel obligated to say something to them?
Yeah. I mean, if they're misbehaving and they're acting some kind of way, like, hey guys,
There's
Can we not-
there's young kids here.
Yeah. can we
Absolutely,
not?
absolutely. And so if the discussion was adults being sort of responsible with their words and disciplined enough to know when you should use vulgarities and not at a freaking playground, the adults of the room need to stand up and say, all right, cool, societally, let's make swearing around kids probably something that we call people on into the mat, not put them in jail because that'd be bad, but at least saying something to them and trying to behave a certain way around them.
Yeah, I mean, if you hear a guy on a playground on his phone being loud, using foul language, swearing, talking about something inappropriate, and there's kids around, and you're like, "Hey, dude, not cool,
Exactly.
not okay."
Exactly.
And someone's like, "What is it? Because I'm whatever?" Then you're like,
Lynn says, but is CPS really involved or is it rumored? So the discussion about cancel culture and where this story plays in with cancel culture, it used to be that you had a lot of power, that if you disagreed with someone, you can destroy their life. You can get them fired. You can get them to lose their kids, their house, their reputation and whatever. And that was a lot of control that the mob had to be able to destroy someone. And it was effective for like way over a decade. And this is the first time where they did the thing that typically would have ruined a life. And you watched people give money and support and says, no, we're not ruining this one. So it's an important dynamic to know that there are people that are just fed up with that narrative and just fed up with the accusations. And I'm not going to say they're any more right or wrong than anybody else. I'm just, as an observer, watching this happen. And that's what I'm saying. Like if this devolves to this point, where all we're doing is warring with each other, where we might not be, taking an assault with you literally, but if I go after your livelihood and I try to destroy you in other ways, that's an assault as far as I'm concerned. You tried to hurt somebody through methods that you can't go to jail for.
yeah. And as far as CPS, according to posts I saw online, people are contacting them.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're taking that seriously or any kind of way. I don't know.
But
if
still, they are
acted,
trying to hurt someone.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that everyone's like so disgusted that people are raising money for this woman. I'm disgusted people are raising money for a kid who murdered someone, who admitted, and they can say allegedly he murdered someone. This kid had not only numerous witnesses, it's not only clear it happened, he admitted it. He said, I sure did. I did this. I'm sorry, like we are so warped in our priorities and our stances here. People are raising money for the legal fees of the Luigi guy who murdered somebody. It's like, oh, well, if I agree with your logic, it's okay, right? Like I don't agree with this person, so that's not okay. But this person, oh, I kind of liked their vigilantism, so I'm going to support them in it. Whether
the mob mentality is super dangerous, and this illustrates why we cannot give the mob control.
Yep. Carter says, it is no wonder people act like this when the Democrat leaders use the race card for every argument they have. And Lynn says, but some of those comments of people who donated to her were disgusting, free speech or not.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm sure blatant racists are supporting her. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure white supremacists can support her. That kind of, you can't help that, I'm sure there are people donating to the fund that's helping the boy who stabbed someone to death, who just hate white people and they're doing it because he's black. I'm sure. But it's probably not everyone on those sides. It just invites that.
Yeah. And that is the discussion we have to have, is why there's so much hostility and resentment. What makes it better? What makes it worse? And are we doing anything that make it worse? Are we doing anything that makes it better? That's the real conversation to have. Mm-hmm. But pointing out the obvious things and clutching your pearls around it and then shaming people out of their instincts is not, I'm not going to, if I'm engineering this, that is not the right reaction to it.
Yeah, I mean, like back when we were talking about Elon Musk and the whole Nazi salute controversy, where they're actual white supremacists that went, yeah, let's make this something. I'm sure there was.
Right.
I'm sure there are people who were sick in the head that said, oh, I'm all over this. I want that to be what he meant, so I'm going to run with it.
But we need to push back on that. I call that the dance, right? You are saying something, right? But you will walk right up to it and make it sort of unstated, right? So if you're like, hey, somebody donated to the cause that's a white supremacist. So what are you saying? What does that fill in the rest of the details? What do you mean by that? Does that mean everybody who donated was there? Well, because there's a few, then the donation represents racism. Get them to say the second part, and then that's where the real conversation begins.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we want to get into
Yes.
with our
Epstein.
time left?
Epstein, yes.
Yeah. And what I think was once again a major womp womp moment.
Yeah.
We were so excited. It's probably not the right term to use, but I was a little excited yesterday talking about James O'Keefe. He's got this bombshell of information. He sent a tape to 3 different outlets. We're releasing this devastating information and shining a light on something on Wednesday. Stay tuned. And we're all like, ooh, what can it be? And my biggest fear, I said yesterday, was, is this going to be another letdown? Is this another Pam Bondi saying we're releasing the Epstein files and then we get no more information than we already knew? And guess what? Yes, it was. It was a letdown, and it was no more information than we already knew. And I feel some kind of way about it, but I'll let you go first.
All right. So let me interrupt that real quick. But did you see Pam Bondi did an interview yesterday?
About that?
No, before it was released.
I thought
She has not mentioned it in weeks. And then yesterday, knowing that James O'Keefe was going to be releasing something, did her own press conference about the Epstein
that
files.
her and Cash Patel talking
Yes.
about?
Yes.
I saw they were talking about something, but I didn't see the full video.
Okay. So what she said, this was definitely a reaction. She said that they have 10,000 videos, right? The videos, the one piece of this I felt had long been deleted by the people who were protecting other people. James Comer even said, don't get your hat hung on this one at all, because the people had access and were storing this information, probably got rid of the evidence long ago. So don't get super excited about what's happening. But Pam said that she's got 10,000 videos that they are combing through and putting together their evidence list up. She didn't say when it would be released. So this might be another, like, come on, here's the one little breadcrumb, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that was I thought it was we were never going to hear about it again from these guys. Never again. They were just going to be shelving it. And then, hey, watch this distraction and don't remember that you're supposed to be working on the evidence. But so that was good. But back to the James O'Keefe thing. If you didn't watch the video, it was about Prince Andrew, was it?
I think so. Yeah.
Prince Andrew
the royal
and
family.
One of his handlers or advisors who was sort of in his circle responsible for, protecting image and, managing who he talked to and whatever, was sat down with an undercover reporter and was complaining about how much peril Andrew put on him because of how he would lie and how he'd be with underage girls and how he participated in Epstein Island. And so it was this long dialogue of him talking, not knowing that he was talking to a reporter.
Not knowing
he aired those grievances. And as Kelin mentioned, this was stuff we kind of already knew because Prince Andrew was stripped of his titles and ostracized from the kingdom, right?
Yeah.
So they already took punitive things, even without knowing that, saying for sure that he did that.
There's already been interviews with Prince Andrew where they said, hey, you're being accused of doing this with underage girls and having these parties and blah, blah, blah. And of course he denies it, but this has already been an accusation. And it's not even anyone in our government. It's the royal family.
Yes. And so part of me thinks that it was only a 6-minute video. And when he does these reports, they are much longer than 6-minute videos. But he usually separates them and does them in pieces. Now, usually, though, the first one they release is the meatiest one. And so if that was the meatiest one he has to release, I'm severely disappointed.
Yeah.
But then you got to think, well, what if it's a lead up where he clickbaited the crap out of us for this one? And so if he can keep you every Wednesday paying attention to this episode of Epstein Island, right? He can get massive amounts of viewers. So if he's wrangling me through that, I will never trust anything that he says again.
And that's where I am with this, is why the dramatics? Why the dramatics leading up to yesterday? Why the supposed bombshell and all this stuff? He knew exactly what we were all thinking. And it turned out to be, okay, that's not earth-shattering news at all.
So if you watch that video and you didn't see the lead up to it, would you have thought, man, James O'Keefe is in freaking danger for his life based on what I just saw?
A little bit, because there's always been that rumor that Princess Diana, they think, was not an accident, that she was unalived because the royal family needed to cover something. So because that idea is already in my head, I think, okay, why would they not do the same thing again?
So they're going to send special operatives, right, on something that everybody knew about anyway, to take O'Keefe out because of the video that they showed yesterday. The level of drama that was in that lead up was not congruent with the level of information that was in that video.
And what really grinds my gears too is in this video, O'Keefe says, the reason I am bringing this to light is I think we need to shine a big light on the evil. These victims deserve justice. We need to put people away for what they did to these kids, yada, yada, yada. And I went, really? Your noble intentions of we've got to put people in jail and we've got to make it right for these victims and this is wrong and we need to throw it out there. Stay tuned for next week.
Yeah.
What came out of his mouth?
I have a victim's name in my pocket, and I, instead of just making sure justice is served, I'm going to hang on to this and release this in October.
I went, you dirtbag. You dirtbag. He just proved to me this is for his own ratings and his own fame. Like, this isn't Unsolved Mysteries. This isn't like Dateline doing a murder mystery from years ago. This is like, oh, I've got more. Keep following next week. Next week? This is such a big deal. This is so horrific. People need to go to prison like yesterday, and you're not releasing more. You say you have more that can put people away. And instead of saying, here it is, I might be unalived, I better get it out. No. Let me wait another week and I'll give you a little bit more. Now it's a freaking game.
Yep.
Now I'm out.
Yep.
Like, what? I was so afraid this was going to be the case. And here it is.
Yep.
The case.
And Lynn says way too many powerful people on those lists, and they have shown that they know how to protect information and people when they need to, and willing to go to the great lengths to make people disappear so that they don't say things. So I'm with Lynn on this, that if this is I think if he was doing this legitimately and it wasn't just for ratings, it would be one of the most noble pursuits that I've seen in my lifetime. If it's just a show, that kills me inside.
And that's what I feel like it is.
Yeah.
I really do. I don't even think he needs to worry anymore about being unalived, because he himself has made this enough of a spectacle that he has discredited himself. Anybody now who is truly in the wrong could easily push back on this and be like, oh, look at this. He's sensationaling on it. Like, he's making this a show. It's all about him. It's completely, unfactual. It's biased information. Are there little nuggets in there that are incriminating to some people? Probably, but not enough to make this an airtight case, I don't think. You could even push back on the fact that the guy in the video is clearly with the girl and they're drinking, and everything he says leading up to that is showmanship. Oh, I used to hang out with royal people. I used to be involved with Fergie. I used to blah, blah, blah. Really, with her glass of wine. Like, oh my God, there are so many holes in this that this will go nowhere. This will go nowhere. This will have been nothing but ratings for O'Keefe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's such a shame. Julie said, I didn't know who O'Keefe was until yesterday. I'm not impressed. Same
here.
I didn't either. I didn't know who he was until all this came about. And now look at him. Even the video of him like, I am not suicidal. Please pray for me. I went and I watched that. Even that, like, this isn't like a guy's cell phone in a basement somewhere. That was set up with lighting and was edited. Like, camera to his right, camera from facing up, edit those shots. Have the logo, like the wall behind him. Then his logo was like, this was edited and planned. And this is nothing but bull. And now it's like, I don't even Dude, I don't even care now. I don't even care what you have.
So next
week.
Wednesday at 3:00, you're not going to watch what he has to say?
Did he give a time?
Yeah.
Well, I probably
It's
will.
going to be a weekly release at 3:00 every Wednesday.
I probably will, so that we can come back here on
And
Thursday.
complain
and
about
say,
how he got us again.
Yes. To be like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And if anything, this even makes a case for people like Trump and Pam Bondi and anyone else who may or may not be involved. Because obviously, when you start releasing stuff that is so easily defended against, your case is done. Like, I totally get now not wanting to release a lot of information until you have an airtight case that these people cannot get out of. This, what O'Keefe did, easily fought in court, easily made.
But if it becomes, and really the only hopeful part is if he truly is feared by the people that are in power and he becomes a catalyst for them to get off their butts, because what that does is raise the popularity of the, what people are paying attention to. And if people get refocused on why, if the government knows who the people are involved while nobody's in prison right now, that puts pressure on the Justice Department to do something about it. And maybe that's the one hope that we have out of that. It forced Pam Bondi to get in front of that camera and say, we are still working on it.
Yeah.
So there's one benefit to yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, I could easily see him saying, what does the majority of the public think? Do they think like us that I'm doing this for ratings and it's all about me and it's a show? Or will they think, ooh, this is so interesting, I can't wait till next week.
But
this guy has
it trends, regardless if how we judge him based on it. It makes the topic trend again, which makes more people pay attention to it.
They will say, even though he's kind of sensationalizing it, the general public are still going to eat it up, and we are still going to have to be on the defense a little bit.
The eternal question, whether or not Epstein offed himself, do I believe it? Do you answer the question first? Do you think Epstein, who was in prison, knowing that he was going to be charged with horrific things, did he take himself out, or did the people that would be outed by what he had to say, did they end up taking him out?
Do you remember? Do we know how it was done? Was was it like a bed sheet or something?
I think it was a belt.
A belt.
I think it was a belt. Yeah. But let me give you the premise.
Yeah.
The guards that were supposed to watch him were different, and the surveillance system, it just had a problem in that moment.
Okay.
So it's not alone that someone in prison just whatever.
And you're not allowed to have a belt in prison.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Taking that away.
I'm going to look it up because I watched way too many movies.
I would say there was more evidence that no, he did not unalive himself. He was unalived. Is what it sounds like. I could see him wanting the out for sure. I wouldn't be surprised, but
Epstein placed on security house in jail from Justice Department. He would have a cellmate and a guard that would walk in every 30 minutes. These procedures were not followed that night, so he had no walk-ins.
The two guards assigned to check his cell overnight fell asleep at their desk.
And no replacements were brought in a beat before he went in there. CCTV shows that the two guards failed to perform the required institute.
He was found unresponsive in cardiac arrest. Kneeling
So he didn't have
position with a strip of bed sheet wrapped around his neck.
Okay.
The sheet was tied to the top of his bunk.
All right. So anyway, it's suspect that he didn't kill him. It would be more probable that people wanted him never to talk about anything that he saw, did, and give up names and whatever. Pushed himself in front of a bus, or shot himself in the back of the head, or hung himself by a bedsheet. All of the Clintonian.
That two guards fell asleep. The video didn't work. What footage there was is unusable.
Yeah, it's very suspicious. And so, no, I do not officially think that he took matters into his own hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cardiac arrest for hanging yourself? That seems a little weird.
That's one question. He was found in a kneeling position.
Okay, so
Cardiac
you have
arrest.
you have the bed, and then you lean into it if you want to off
Yeah,
yourself,
because you're not
and you
really
would
gonna.
you would be asphyxiated.
Yes.
You would have died from asphyxiation, not cardiac arrest.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Somebody didn't follow protocol. That you could have done a better job and just strangle him, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, unless cardiac arrest. Was he fighting? Was there a struggle?
Maybe
Was something in his system given to him?
little food additive to make the
Yeah.
heart go boom boom.
Cardiac arrest. Was his heart pounding because he was in a struggle, in a fight? He was.
Interesting. But no,
Hmm.
to answer your question, Jeff, I do not believe that it was a natural occurring or a self-inflicted anything. I
Yeah.
think it was not.
Same with the girl. So the girl that was hit by a bus and then unalived herself,
Yes.
I think was one of these victims speaking out against Prince Andrew, which makes that even shadier.
Mhm.
So I could see O'Keefe being like, yeah, this isn't our own people. It's the royal family. It's something we haven't mentioned before, but here's a little more evidence that maybe this girl did not unalive herself.
And so starting with Prince Andrew, based on the recent unaliving, that makes a little bit more sense. And the danger, if they were willing to go to those lengths to unalive her, him talking about it would have put him in the same kind of danger.
Yeah.
So maybe
I could see maybe the timeline he's unfolding, and maybe he's trying to lay a base of credibility. But and someone else mentioned too, if he truly has evidence and he's withholding it, is that illegal? Can he not get in trouble for being like, you're telling me you have stuff, you have to turn that in?
I wouldn't consider that evidence, though.
Right.
Like you
Other
said.
stuff.
So if it were actual evidence that could be part in a crime, like, you can obviously have an interview and the guy's just going to say, when he gets his lawyer, say, no, I was drunk and I was just trying to impress this girl. I didn't even know Prince Andrew, blah, blah, blah. So
Yeah.
it can't carry any weight. So I doubt it's illegal, right? But it does make the people who are going through this look really bad when the details now are known by the public, because then they're just going to look at them and say, look, I got this guy. He's bragging about what had happened with no remorse whatsoever, that he was an enabler for somebody to be assaulted in this way. Why are you not perp walking every one of these people right to where justice would lead them?
Yeah. And here's another thing that I think of too when I try to think of like defense attorneys coming to this. At what point is it illegal to record someone without their knowledge? I know some cases it's legal
Some
and
states.
some it is not.
So some states mean that if you're recording it, both parties have to know about it. So you would have to meet somebody in a state where one part, as long as somebody knows that they're being recorded. So if I'm recording you and you don't, I could record you in the state of Ohio. It's a one-party state.
Yeah, because I know like undercover cops can wear wires and things, and that's submissible.
Yeah, the only thing that's not allowed is if both parties don't know they're being recorded. Now that's not something that is allowed or illegal.
So if this were a conversation caught because the restaurant person was recording these two people,
would not have been
legal.
Not legal.
But if she
knew she was recording,
and
so
you could tell too now that this unfolds, she was very, very well. You could hear there was no like, oh my god, I think she said this. There was clearly a speaker somewhere, and you could clearly say, well, what do you mean by that? That he was having sex with young people? Yeah, that he was blah 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 with young. Like you could tell she was sort of baiting
him in. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think Hillary's lawyer killed himself too? How about Bill Barr visited the prison 2 days prior? Who's Bill Barr?
He was attorney general, I believe, for Trump the first term.
Do you think Hillary's lawyer killed himself?
You know what? This is one conspiracy theory that I think has some grains of truth, but I think too many of them have been attributed to them. Yeah. People are just waiting for someone to mysteriously not be here anymore, and then they tag the Clintons because it was convenient for them not to be here anymore. But do I think there are people that are around them and are in positions that can make inconvenient people disappear? I do. So there's probably some on that list that they had something to do with.
Do you think there was foul play higher up with this whole, hey, let's make Tesla so bad off that gets rid of Elon? We can't really unalive because of how that might look. But if we,
I don't think they care how
lead
it
the
looks anymore.
charge-
I think they're so brazen about it that,
Yeah.
you know, if it makes the news that it was a suicide, I think they're cool with that. Even it's like, so this person took the gun from behind, they committed suicide, but they did it in the back of their head. That doesn't make sense. And then we lose interest in it, and we're like, oh, like there's people capable of killing other people in government. That's, you know,
this is another
concerning.
reason I say that our addiction to social media and the internet is so bad for us, because it is making our attention span so that something will be shocking in 2 days, it's done. You don't even care anymore.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what these people are relying on. Hey, just cover fire for a couple of days. They won't care anymore.
Now, in 80s and 90s television, right, you always had the hero that would always make the right decision in spite of everything that's going to happen. You saw that with Jack Bauer. Jack Bauer was one of those people who had to compromise some of his principles at times, and he always did the right thing, or at least he had some remorse that he had to do the wrong thing. And then what was the Game of Thrones guy? The guy that got killed in the first episode, Ned something. Anyway, he showed loyalty to the king in like 2 seconds. He got, offed, and he was like the favorite character of the freaking show. And so like, I always believe that people in positions of power, they'll eyeball it and they'll say, all right, this thing is the right thing to do, but this is going to cause all kind of devastation. And you just hear the hero music play, and like, I'm going to do it anyway. And then everybody cheers like, that's our guy. That's and I want leaders to be that. But then I picture leadership here, like people even that I like and I trust that they're a pretty good person. If they walked up, I know they're going to rationalize it and make a reason for it. Almost like the Trump administration. I do not like this executive order based on anything being a national security risk. They're tucking a lot of things they want to do and loosely claiming that it's a national security risk when it's total BS. So they're making a lot of these executive orders, and the reason and rationale, like the executive orders have a very thin placement of how you're allowed to do it. If something poses a danger to the United States, right?
Yeah.
A reaction to the executive branch is to protect the United States. And if Congress is too slow, if it's an imminent threat, you can write an executive order to be able to protect the United States. So once a person in power realizes they can bypass Congress, they can be like, okay, we're dealing with, buying shoes from China, right? And we can't do that with a tariff on China for shoes. So it's got to be a national security risk. So then you concoct some kind of stupid reason why shoes from China poses some kind of risk. And now you get to defend it as that's your rationale. When in reality, it had just to do with economics, and it should have gone through freaking Congress.
See, I was wondering about all these executive orders. Because now, granted, I haven't really paid attention to politics in the past as much as I do now. Is it just me, or has Trump signed far more than anyone else?
A lot.
And then I thought to myself, I was under the impression signing an executive order was a fairly big deal.
Yes.
That held some weight.
Yeah.
But we have it for it's like executive order of National Irish Heritage Day and executive order of Women's Something Day and changing Veterans Day to World War I something day and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I thought this was like almost an emergency situation thing to do. We have a new executive order every day on like,
and they are using it
today.
They are using it to bypass Congress, because if they put it through Congress, it would take a really long time, go through committees, debated, voted on. It might be months before anything can be done. So the executive branch found a cheat code that says all you got to do is make some kind of weird predicate to national security, and I can do the thing, and then it's short sunset, but then Congress can deal with it later. So if you want something done right now, so all you got to do is pin it, make it national security. And I think that's wrong. I think any president that does a cheat code through the system is not doing it legitimate.
Because there are clearly executive orders he has signed that were not a matter of national security.
But if you read them, they do make a rationale that it's somehow connected to national security. And it's dirty, slimy
so that
crap.
They can say, look at all the executive orders signed in this presidency. Look at all the safety measures we took.
And Republicans used to criticize Democrats for bypassing the legislature for that way. And now you have Republicans doing the exact same thing. And it was dirty when the Democrats did it. And that's dirty when the Republicans are doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. That's kind of dumb. It's kind of dumb.
We went all over the place today.
We did. We did. We went a little here and a little there. And I feel like most people are on the same page today. That's a little
We didn't get any
interesting.
pushback, right? Much pushback.
I don't think so, really.
But these are my favorite kind of conversations because they make parts of you, like they're not easy debates where they're not inconsequential. These things are going to guide where the future of the United States is within the next decade. So all of the things that concern you about it is worth talking about. But what you said, where we can't even have a debate with two people because you're entrenched in what your beliefs are, so we can't even dig into new parts of the topic. All of these ones are so radioactive, nobody talks about them, right?
Yeah, because people are afraid to, because you get accused of being a certain way or you get called something. It's like, holy crap.
Yeah, but just like our blondie on there, who are becoming unafraid now, obviously not the spokesperson I would have, picked up to talk about the ideals of discrimination and fairness and all of that.
Yeah.
But at least confidence is rising in telling people how you truly feel.
It does make me want to deep dive into her a little more to see, was she sort of being facetious or not? Jeff says, great show. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. But Julie's example, Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America BS. Like, was that a national security threat to change the name of something? I mean, and he's done that a few times. It's even interesting to see. I don't know if this has anything to do with Trump or not. The renaming of military bases. Like right before I left the South, Fort Benning became Fort Moore. And I heard a lot about the money that went into that. Because if you think about it, like, it's not just like changing a sign on a building. It was everything. Any road signs in town that said Fort Benning had to be changed to Fort Moore. Everything on base that said Fort Benning had to be changed to Fort Moore. Down to like the what do you call that? Merch, whatever.
Tchotchke.
Yeah, like your letterheads of everything was now Fort Moore. It was an incredibly expensive situation, and they just did it right before I left. So 2023, and they are now back to Benning. Apparently, it's a different Benning. It's not the original Benning. It's named after a different military.
It's Fort Bennigans now.
Bennigans?
Yes.
They just need a little more flair. But I'm just like, I can't imagine the money that in 2 years was like, oh, change it to this. Nope, never mind. Change it to this. And I'm like, holy crap. How did you justify that to the people down in town? That we just spent this much to change it, and we're now changing everything back. Like, why? Was that a national security issue? That's a crap ton of money to just be playing semantics with names in the agenda.
Well, we changed a syrup brand. We changed a professional baseball team. We changed
multiple teams.
A professional football team. We changed landmarks. So this stupidity, right, did not just begin, right? Changing the name as some kind of signal to people is expensive and really, really stupid.
It
really
is.
Stupid.
Thank you, Julie. Julie says, always a good show. Agree or disagree. You aren't afraid to listen. Thank you. Carter says, Trump had to counteract Biden's.
Yeah. So, but it's the level of stupidity that just perpetuates. And the next person that comes in there is going to change all these things. You saw the Persian Gulf, Trump on American maps wants it to be changed to the Arab Sea or something like that. Another level of stupidity. Because that's what we need. It was probably.
Remember when we were doing away with unnecessary spending? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing?
The stupidity just has no bounds.
These
are the people. These are the people you absolutely want in charge of your healthcare and your national defense and all of that stuff because they're so good.
You know, another thing I recently saw online.
What's that?
Julie says, "Do you think Trump knows what he signs?" I don't know. When he signs it, there's a whole presentation where they say somebody else says what he's signing, which is interesting. But I not that I am a fan of hers, but I saw a clip of Candace Owens. I have mixed feelings about Candace Owens. But she had said, and apparently you can look this up, and it's a credible piece of information. The government funds films in Hollywood. There is a budget Hollywood can go to our government and fund films they want to make, which allows our government to push their own agenda of what gets made.
Yeah.
What is the idea we want to feed people? What is the narrative we want to push? Make a film about this, make a film about this. And so they can sort of control the narrative to things, even through Hollywood and the movies that we see and get served. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's super effective. All I have to do is take a Netflix, a Disney, any of these media corporations, and I'm like, I want DEI to be in every film. I want a lesbian or gay couple in every film. I want an interracial couple in every film. So they make these movies, right, that all they do is they change culture because that's the major influence. So if I can control music, I control movies, television shows, I can sculpt culture based on those things. It's a great play by the government. How much you as citizens want the government to be involved in that sculpting, in that propaganda, makes me extremely uncomfortable whether or not they're doing, like if I wanted to take noble virtues and I wanted every movie to have sort of like a hero climax to teach people what it really was to make sacrifices for good things. Like, then I'd be thinking, well, what if somebody came in here, can change that dialogue and put things that I would consider sinful, pinnacles? Would I really want culture to be influenced that way? So
yeah,
uncomfortable.
It is interesting. I wish there was a little more transparency in who's funding films. I mean, there probably is. I'm sure you can look that up. But I wonder if it would change my mind whether or not to see a film based off of who's funding it.
Yeah, movies should be a product just like buying a gallon of gas. We apply the same rules. You try to make your movies and get the most amount of ticket sales, and don't collude with the government or other theaters to work against the consumers. So yeah,
it's interesting. We learned recently that Jeff Bezos, supposedly was going to include 2 numbers on the prices of Amazon items. Here's the cost, but here's what the cost with the tariff, just to be like, look what the tariff did. Okay, well, here's a movie. Here's who's funding it. Here's where we got our money. The government funded this film. When do you ever say in theaters, July 28th, by the United States government, we present Snow White?
That would be transparency.
Yes, but they don't do that. Oh, don't do that.
Yeah, spoiler, everybody is bought and paid for by a special interest. Even though all of us, the number one thing we want brought out of government is special interest. But if it's our special interest, we're okay with our special interest. Yeah. But if there was no special, like if every politician had to wear those patches like the NASCAR guys do, right? Then see who they represent. And then they would say, I am for this bill on pharmaceuticals. And you look at their patches and see which one of those pharmaceuticals made those words come out of their mouth. Then it would make sense. We're like, we're going to minimize you because I don't think you can say anything to not support pharmaceuticals. Because look, they just gave all this to your campaign.
Yeah, it was interesting for me too, to see like when you would have movies come out about like war heroes and these historically real people that they, made some sort of war movie about and painted them as a hero. And then me sort of being in that realm for a long time with military family members, knew people who knew that person for real and where they were like, okay, sure, if that's how you want to paint him, and I'm just like, oh, why? What's the tea? What was he really like? But who funded it? Whose narrative is it?
Right. So last topic of the day, Pakistan and India are at war with one another.
Okay? Oh, I just see one of them like shot a missile or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whose side are you on?
Neither. I don't know much about it.
War sucks. The military complex and the money that's made from people warring against one another.
Yeah.
So, of course, when stuff goes on, I'm trying to find. I like to pick a side on both sides, and a news agency that was Indian based and also Pakistan based, to see what they're saying about how did this war start? Was it bubbling over? I mean, was it terrorism? Was it just a dispute of some kind? Do you believe that we are in World War III that we just haven't named World War III yet? And how many wars does it take? How many disputes and lobbing, munitions at each other before it constitutes as a world war?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know what that line is. There's the line that
Do you think personally, are we in World War III right now?
feels like we're pretty close.
Yeah. Do you know, do you have any guesses as to who's next? Which other countries are about to?
I mean, I really feel like China's in there somewhere.
You know who they're going after next?
Who?
Taiwan. 100% chance.
I don't know enough
Put
about
money.
this. Why?
Put money on it. That within probably the next month and a half, there will be a Taiwan blockade.
Why?
Right?
What's the beef with Taiwan?
Okay, so
I gotta catch up on this.
Yeah, international politics is freaking fascinating because we are all we all have conquest in our blood, taking territories and opening new markets, power grabs, resources, the whole thing. So Russia, if you look at what their mission statement would be, they have territories that they feel are theirs, right? Mm-hmm. And over time, they are going to take back all of those territories, Crimea and Ukraine. And Ukraine is not the last one on their list. There's a lot more of that peninsula, more of that area that they are looking to become part of Mother Russia once again. Then you have the Palestinians and the Israelis. There's a plot of land that one group says is part of theirs and they would like. They have China, who wants Taiwan as its own thing, but China doesn't really agree with the fact that they're their own thing. So these property disputes of people wanting to increase the amount of land and territory for the power and control that they have. So yeah, I just named 3 current disputes that are over the increasing of land. Okay.
Why now?
Well, if you're going to take an opportunity where you can do it, you have the most amount of potential, like to actually be successful, now would be it. And this was the undoing by Trump, right? China knows that that's a sensitive area. So if they just out of the blue tried to take Taiwan, they would have international support condemning it wholly, and they would have a lot of opposition. The tariffs with China right now basically put economic pressure on China. Right. So there's a lot of countries that are not real happy about us and what we're doing economically to all of their. So how willing would a country that we just assaulted with tariffs be to now jump on the bandwagon to defend Taiwan against? Taiwan's a bigger interest to us than those other countries. So we would want the support from people we just punched in the mouth. So a lot of interesting things that were catalysts of these tariffs are going to be anything that would have happened, but maybe not happen a while, or kind of happen right about now.
So really, are our only options either no tariffs and continue to be used, or defend ourselves and have war?
No, those are not the only 2 options. Those are not the only 2 options.
What are better options?
Systematically renegotiating deals one-on-one basis, even if it takes 10 years to get through those countries.
Okay, so you're saying stand up for yourself, do something, but don't make it so tariffs. Make it a slower.
Instability causes conflict. And if you create international instability in any department, right, you can make the earthquake happen because you created that instability.
But what happens if, doing it a little more slowly and strategically is probably the better way to do it, but you've only got a couple years?
Well, I understand the rationale. I know why they did it the way that they did, but I cannot disconnect the consequences of doing an abrupt thing. There is consequences and a payment that's going to have to be made, which means that I'm sure there's smart people that know that China wants to take Taiwan anyway, and they've got contingencies of what they're going to do, but it's not going to be as graceful if they did it more diplomatically instead of,
But I could totally see one side saying that is my only choice. Do this or it won't get
I
done.
understand that was probably the best choice if you were willing to then take responsibility of the consequences. And this is for sure. You could argue that it was going to happen anyway, and that just made it happen faster.
It won't get done at all.
Right. So, but all of these conflicts, all of them happening at the same time, is like, we don't want a World War III. So if we can get India and Pakistan to get over this, we can get Ukraine and Russia over this, if we can get Israel and Palestine over this, if the Houthis and the Iranian, all of these things that are connected in there are all happening at the same time, which wouldn't have happened if you didn't create that catalyst. So you got to own that and know that your negotiators that try to get trade deals also have to sew up all of this conflict that's going to happen because of that, insecurity.
So you're saying all the conflict among themselves is because they now feel this sort of economic pressure?
Not directly, but you created instability in marketplaces. And when you do that, like if we shake things up a little bit, it makes you take actions that if things were stable and solid that you may have contemplated for a couple more years. Yeah.
We shook things up.
Exactly.
And
you had panic. You had overreactions because you created instability.
You have a pandemic and now the toilet paper.
Yeah, because all those conflicts aren't something that happened specifically because of the instability. Those would have happened anyway eventually. You just kind of made them happen all now because you had insecurity across the globe. And I don't think people realize how much of a tinderbox we are and how close we are to chaos at any given moment, because smart people kind of like sew that chaos up and make things not happen that otherwise would have, and you never hear about it. But when all of that comes unglued and all the things, all the conquest and the military actions and the hatred for other countries and the disputes about economies, we're like, oh, now's our time. Like, think about the grouping of countries that are actively working against us. You have China, you have Russia, you have North Korea, right? You have Iran, right? We have people that are very powerful, that have bad actions, and all they need is a reason to come together and start working together. So if Russia and Ukraine wasn't happening, do you think North Korea would have their soldiers stationed in Russia? No. But you have those two people coming together, and when the generals are sitting around talking, like, hey, after this one's done, we have a common enemy in those guys over there, and now you've created an access power, right? Not because it would have happened anyway, but because of the situations that was presented.
But could we also then just now start to just renegotiate tariff things and start doing that systematically?
I hope I hope these pop-offs are enough for those people to say, hey, we got to lower the volume a little bit.
Yeah, like somebody's got to de-escalate everything.
100%. But there's lots of money in war. So the people that are now saying, this is my payday time, I'm going to lean on this and make a little bit more stuff happen. I'm going to make a lot of money out of it, right? That's the danger.
And how many of these countries have nukes?
Well, that's what we're looking at. That no. If you read some of the quotes that came out of Pakistan, they made a threat that said, and I don't know if it was reversed. I don't have a side. I'm just paying attention to what they're saying. Yeah. But they said if they hit the XYZ, the airport, the military base, whatever, not only are we going to make sure that they are punished, they said the whole world would be ended if they did that. They threatened everybody,
including themselves,
with the nuclear power. Yes.
I mean, it hurts them too.
Yes. They don't care. They're
psychotic.
They're psychotic. I mean, Japanese flew into things and convinced people to take their own life for the cause.
If there is anything we need to be doing right now, and I don't know how this would ever be done, but if there's a push for something, it needs to be like, here's something the whole world needs to get on page with, is we're getting rid of nukes, period. Nobody should have them. This should not be an option. Because what's the point? Who benefits from it? Nobody. Anybody who uses it, you're killing yourself too. It's like, well, if I can't have this, nobody can. Like, that should be not an option. Get rid of them all. That'll never happen.
Japan, unconditional surrender, because it was so devastating, ending of a world war. That would be the argument where it's such a lever point. The weapon that you never want to use. We used it twice, and we ended a world war because of it. Now, you got to convince who's going to be the first government that says, yep, we're giving him up, and everybody else is like, nope, I'm keeping mine.
Yeah.
That's why it'll never happen.
You count to 3, everybody destroy it. Ready? You all better do it.
You're not going to do it. He didn't do it. He has one in the corner.
I'm trusting you. Well, we're both jumping this out at the same time.
So anyway, that's my concern, is that this is escalating to such a degree the influences of countries to say, whoa, two nuclear powers cannot have a dispute where they're both threatening to use the powerhouse weapon that they have in there that is going to make things unglued.
I guess the only then shred of hope I can hold on to is when we hear things like so many countries have reached out to us to strike a deal. Let's just hope that keeps happening. And the whole shock of this tariff starts to get calmed down a bit. Negotiations start. Everybody just chill and we de-escalate the situation one-on-one now.
So the talk about Iranian nuclear enrichment, do you know this story?
No.
All right. So basically, Iran has oil and gas, whatever, but they develop a nuclear program for the people who live there for power needs. And everybody in the world's like, come on, you got oil and gas. You didn't need nuclear, right? You live in a energy rich part of the world. But the process of having enriched uranium allows you to have power, but also you can get to levels of nuclear grade material so that you can have weapons. And Iran really wants weapons. So the ones over there that don't have them yet, and they would really, really like them. So we don't want them to have them. Obama did some really dumb stuff with policy that gave them a clear pathway to a nuclear weapon. And then it kind of, through international pressure, brought that down a couple of levels. But they've got reactors that have been targets of ours. So I can see us hitting those targets. Boom, boom, boom. Reactors gone, right?
Yeah.
Which could create, and Iran's not a friend of ours anyway. They're supplying the Houthis. They're creating a lot of terrorism in the neighborhood. So my first one is China goes after Taiwan. I'm thinking that the United States or Israel hits the nuclear reactors, and that's going to be the next hornet's nest that gets going. It's the most logical next one.
Oh, Carter says deal with UK today.
Yeah, there's it's probably happening right now. Is Trump is taking their first tariff negotiation, the deal that was made with Britain, with the UK. And this will be sort of the template that they hope that other nations follow, using that as their sampling.
Well, that'd be a good thing, right? Maybe. No.
It's a weird one. It's a weird one for sure, because the parliament and the leadership in the UK have not been very complimentary to anything. So for the deal to be a good one, the best deal ever, right? I have my reservations about this.
Would the UK in any way be like, listen, let's strike a deal, but here's what we want. This O'Keefe guy needs to go.
Oh, that's the conspiracy theorist of all conspiracy. Or the reasonable people got in a room and said, we gotta curtail this. We gotta get everybody on board, and we're willing to work together to do something that we're gonna take a little egg on our face when we go back to the citizens, because we're in bad shape, right? We need you, United States, as a friend. We are willing to eat a little bit of crow to get the dominoes falling. It's more likely how it went down than your conspiracy theory idea, but I like it. It's a good one.
Oh, we're about out of time.
We are wrapping it up. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in today. I have a interview with Derek McDowell coming up at 11:30. We're going to talk about his independent candidacy for mayor of Youngstown, and then we've got the MLO Bros have a big show on Friday. So catch you guys later. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook. Thank you for your support.